Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday edition. Had to stop and think of what day it was. The Wednesday edition of KC Sports Tonight. Scott Reiss with special guest. Wait for it. And yeah.
The delay.
There it is.
I like it.
The elusive Jared Koller back from...
The people are probably disappointed. The delay, they're like, oh, who's it going to be?
Who's it going to be? It's going to be somebody really cool.
It's just Jared.
Yeah, it's just Jared. No, we haven't seen Jared in a while. So welcome back.
Yeah.
You know, pretty much the hair's a little longer. Other than that, you look kind of the same as when we left you.
Take that as a compliment. No, I'm excited. This is my first stream after the debut last week. They held it down. For all our loyal viewers from, now a couple of years ago who remember the Locker Room Show, this is a little bit more that style where, you know, a couple of the sports team members are just talking sports for a handful of minutes. I'm glad to kind of get back that platform where we can really go in-depth on some fun analysis. So.
And go in depth we will. Not much question as to the big story of the day. We're still waiting on the drop of the entire NFL schedule. That'll come at 7 o'clock. But, boy, we've got a lot of the pieces that have fallen into place. Big picture from what you've seen so far, what jumps out at you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting the way it's front-loaded at home with two tough matchups against the Baltimore Ravens in an AFC Championship game rematch, and then the Cincinnati Bengals with an AFC Championship game rematch of the 2 years prior. But when you start at home, back-to-back games for the first time since 2003, well, that also means you only have 6 home games over your last 16 games. Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of road tests later on in the year. So I think it kind of balances itself out where you have some tough home games early, likely without Rashee Rice. Then you got to go on the road, but then you're a little bit more experienced. So I think that evens out. The question that I'll be looking forward to see when this drops at 7 o'clock is the draw as far as, you know, who do you get after a bye week? What games do you have on short rest?
Yeah.
We know they're likely playing on, well, we know for sure they are playing on Christmas Day on a Wednesday. So what games come around that? I think we know who they're going to play, but how it lies out is going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, boy, Wednesday, that's a brutal turnaround, assuming you're playing the Sunday before. And maybe they won't. Maybe they'll work it so those teams are playing on Saturday. But either way, short week. You have a Wednesday and a Thursday, and according to Joe Buck, you have 2 Mondays. So we have at least 4 weeknight games or weekday games, I guess.
Keyword being at least, because, Scott, there's an option of playing on Black Friday.
Oh, that's right, Black Friday too. So that's 5.
I wouldn't be surprised for that Wednesday game if they maybe play that on a Saturday, because I think that Sunday to Wednesday stretch is a little too tight.
Right.
I could see them playing on Saturday, which means, Scott, the Chiefs would play a game on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Tuesday's feeling a little left out. I'm thinking maybe a Monday night weather delay. Maybe, if they can get a little Tuesday football in there, that'd be pretty cool.
That is crazy, yeah. So that's right. I forgot about the Black Friday against the Raiders. So,
maybe, yeah.
Well, I mean that's reported. And if all these reports are accurate, we're already looking at 5. So that's at least 5 non-weekend games, which I think is what we had last season. If memory serves, there were 5 Monday, Thursday games over the course of the season. Which is good and not so good, depending on your perspective. All eyes on the national games. That's fun. Selfishly, we like Sunday games because we get them on our air more often than not.
Agreed there, but hey, that's the price of being good. Netflix wants to pay $1 billion for Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. I mean, if the Chiefs were the 2012 Chiefs, you'd be having a lot more noon games. Not quite this national spotlight, but heavy as the crown.
So I hear Pittsburgh is lovely on Christmas Day.
Sounds like a great road trip for you. I don't know what the wife and kids think of that, but,
we'll
throw on a Santa suit with the steel curtain.
Yeah, have to see how that works. Last year was the Christmas Day game, at least was here. It was an utterly forgettable football game, but that's another story.
Somewhere in between, because the Chiefs' Christmas Day win over the Denver Broncos, where Dontari Poe threw a touchdown pass, Travis Kelce had an 80-yard touchdown and did a Feliz Navidad dance. That game was awesome. Then last year's Christmas Day game was a big downer. So in the middle, I don't need a phenomenal game, just a game that doesn't make me hate the holiday for that day.
Hey, it all worked out all right.
It did.
That was the turning point, man.
That was. They did not lose after that.
They did not. It was the rallying point of the season. But just seeing Baltimore and Cincinnati right out of the gate. I mean, you talk about high stakes. You mentioned the 2 home games. You got to hold serve at home, and you can throw out the Bengals last year. They didn't have Joe Burrow most of the season. We expect that they will be among the better teams in the AFC. We certainly know Baltimore will be. So you got 2 legitimately difficult games right out of the chute, not exactly wading into this new season.
give you the pro and con, okay? The pro is that Andy Reid, with rest and time to prepare, pretty good. Same applies to Patrick Mahomes. Not a guarantee, as we saw coming off the bye week against the Eagles last year, but for the most part, in season openers, coming after bye weeks, the Chiefs almost always win. Again, last year, the exception against the Lions, so I'm not saying guaranteed win, but you like that for the Ravens. And then because you're playing on Thursday, you have even more rest than the Bengals would for that Sunday Week 2 game. That, again, you have more time to prepare than the Bengals, and you have a strong game plan for a game that, both sides will want to win. The con is that you're going to be less experienced in those first 2 weeks than you are at the end of the year for some key players, talking specifically about whoever the left tackle is not going to have a ton of games of experience, whether it's the rookie or second year in Wanya Morris. And Xavier Worthy is going to be filling in likely for Rashee Rice. Talk about a big test out of the gate. So I think there's pros and cons like there is with everything, but I kind of like having a little juice early in the season because I'm that confident in how the Chiefs perform early on.
Let me throw this at you, and this is a left turn from the schedule, but you've mentioned Rashee Rice a couple of times now. It is my understanding that the NFL will not hand down any sort of suspension until the entire legal process has run its course. And I don't know what the chances are that will happen between now and the 1st of September. That's how they roll. They don't do it unless they're going to break from the way it's been. So I think that we can assume a Rashee Rice suspension of some sort, but I don't know that we can necessarily assume it's going to be the start of the season.
That'd be following the Willie Gay playbook. The Frank Clark thing went even longer than that. But there's also the question of, hey, does the team do anything about that? I don't think so, but
I think they'll wait as well.
At this point, I'd probably say it's more likely he's not playing week 1. But listen, like you said, it's anybody's guess, and that's the thing when these schedules come out. There's tough breaks, and then there's things that you think look easy, like in week 2 a couple years ago they were playing the Colts, who were a really bad team, and they lost. Then last year you looked at the gauntlet in December, and you're going, oh my gosh, you got Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. Well, then Joe Burrow was injured because Joe Burrow's injured a lot, and that's the thing. We don't really know exactly how it's going to break, so we're going to read in to each matchup with Neil Jones and I tonight at 8 o'clock, and we're going to have some takeaways, some analysis. But at the end of the day, the season still has to unfold, and who knows how this team is going to look in Week 6, Week 12, Week 17, with the Rashee Rice situation playing out. A lot of factors that we get to speculate about, which is fun.
No, and that's a great point. It's not just about how the Chiefs will look in Week 5 and Week 8 and Week 12, but nobody knows what these opponents are actually going to be. And you can talk all you want about preseason strength of schedule, and that's great, and it's fun to talk about, and there probably is merit to it. But there are going to be teams you expect to be good who wind up lousy, and there are going to be teams you expect to be total non-factors who wind up, contenders, and you're talking about them, looking at them a lot differently in the middle of the season. So, but like you said, that's why it's fun to, just sort of look ahead and speculate. It's what we do, and it's what you will do on that special coming up with Neil. You think Neil will have something to say? Is that what you're saying?
Normally I have to pry it out of Neil. He and I always agree.
Yeah, exactly.
No, normally at this time, because Neil and I have done this pretty much every year for the past couple of years, normally down in studio, I tend to be a little bit more optimistic than Neil, which is no surprise. However, I think that's proven right more often than not. We'll see if maybe the glow of back-to-back Super Bowl championships will get Neil to raise his record maybe closer to mine at 8 o'clock.
All right. Let's move on to the Royals with apologies to those who are actually watching the Royals game and not watching us, but people multitask.
Watching
we got
the
multiple
Royals game
screens
and listening to
there
us.
you go.
Sorry, Ryan Lefevre and
there
Jimmy
you go.
Guthrie.
So the Royals right now are losing 3-1 in the 8th inning against Seattle. You see the stats there at the bottom blank because I had intended to put stats from today in, and you know what? I forgot to do that. But there's not a whole lot. It's a 3-1 game. The lone Royals run was a Bobby Witt Jr. sacrifice fly. However, as I check my second screen right here, the Royals have runners on second and third and 1 out in the top of the 8th inning. So
flip on the TV, leave us talking. We're going to give you some Royals analysis while they make the comeback.
I talked about this yesterday with Marlia. This was a sneaky, difficult series, and I think a really good barometer. Mariners' pitching staff is dynamic. It's phenomenal. I mean, I think it's the best staff in the American League. That's my personal view. Bryce Miller, virtually unhittable on Monday. Logan Gilbert, untouchable yesterday through 6 until one swing of the bat from Nelson Velasquez, which basically won the Royals the game. And tonight they couldn't do anything with Brian Wu. and they got to him just enough to scratch across the 1 run in the 6th, and now they're trying to get to the bullpen. But that said, I mean, Jared, look,
it's competitive.
9 games above 500. Is that where we are right now? I mean, a game and a half out in the Central, and as good a story as this has been all season, we're now past the quarter mark. So it was fun, when it was week 2 and week 3, but this is now
still fun.
It's now it's fun, but now it's a legitimate sample size. And you and I haven't really, in a public forum, had this discussion of just how much fun it has been to watch this team be right in the thick of things now as we get to the middle of May.
Yeah, listen, I've been on vacation, and I've still been looking at every play-by-play of the Royals, watching plenty of highlights, and I don't think I'm alone in that. People are still interested this time of year, which has not always been the case, especially that 2021 season where they had the best record in baseball after the first month. Well, they followed that up with like an 11-game losing streak and completely fell off a cliff. So we are reaching territory that we've not seen since they were last competitive in that 2013 to 2017 window. We do not take it for granted. I think, speaking on today's game, the storyline that continues to permeate is how much can Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez carry this baseball team? Because that's what they've been doing offensively. All right, pitching and defense has been very strong.
Yes.
Up and down, of course, headlined by Seth Lugo. The defense has been much improved, and the rotation as a whole has been one of the best staffs in all of baseball.
Been great.
And that is the biggest reason why they've won. But they've also won because the offense has done just enough many times. A lot of that coming in big innings, but more specifically coming in clutch. With runners in scoring position, Bobby Witt Jr. has been very strong, and he's scored some of the most runs in all of baseball. Salvador Perez has been, on another planet with runners in scoring position, especially with 2 outs. So when you're able to ride the coattails of those 2 dudes, there's a greater margin for error for today. Vinny Pasquantino popping up with a runner on 3rd and 1 out. We'll see if, Salvador Perez that time couldn't pick him up. We'll see if they're able to continue to ride those guys. So I think going forward, that's a key storyline to watch is, can Witt and Salvi stay at a MVP level of production, RBIs and scoring runs, and or can other players step up? Because to this point, there's been times Michael Massey's flashed, MJ Melendez started really hot. We saw Nelson Velasquez run into one for the first time in a while in Game 2. So we'll see.
It's funny because as you were saying this, it's all playing out in real time. Bobby Witt Jr. down 2 with 2 on and 1 out, and he doesn't get the base hit, but he does get the run home RBI ground out. So a Bobby Witt Jr. sack fly and a Bobby Witt Jr. RBI ground out responsible for the 2 runs.
But it's redemption
3-2.
time for Vinny.
And that's tails to the second part of your thesis there, which is somebody else has to step up. All right, runner in scoring position, down 1, late innings, 2 outs. You need a base hit to tie the game. Vinny's at the plate.
And he's your 3-hitter.
He's your 3-hitter.
Now, yeah. I get the right lefty matchup, but, could have been Salvi in that 3 spot. This is how they've done it all year. I agree with it. But listen, this team, if they're going to win some ball games, they need Vinny Pasquantino to not necessarily be Salvi or Bobby, but they need him to be a
look. Your 3 hitters got to be really good.
First baseman. His defense has been improved, but they need him to hit, and it's a good time.
And it's not the lefty-lefty matchup now. It's their closer, Andres Munoz, who's in the game, who's one of the top relievers in the league. So but hey, you're a 3-hole guy. Be clutch. So we'll keep you posted on how that goes. The backdrop for this week, however, will shift substantially. They'll leave Seattle tonight. They'll fly home. Off day tomorrow. But really the celebration begins tomorrow. And I know that this is something as a passionate, lifelong Royal fan. 2014, obviously, a very special season around these parts. They get to the World Series. They're 1 game away from winning a World Series. Obviously, they got that done the next season. But it's the 10-year anniversary. And, Jared, a lot of your heroes are coming back, and they're going to be in town tomorrow. And it's going to be a really fun weekend with a lot of positive momentum.
Yeah, Scott, I think the 2014 Royals, listen, I'm not ashamed to say they're a special team to me because – Scott, they were the first team that won a playoff game. I'm not talking about, now in Kansas City we judge success by championships. Well, in 2014, the Royals and Chiefs neither had won a playoff game since 1994. Okay? So when the 2014 Royals won that wild card game against Oakland, boy, I didn't know how to feel. And so the fact that then that parlayed into a sweep over the Angels, the number 1 seed at that time, and Mike Trout, his only playoff series, a sweep over the Orioles, and then taking the Giants to Game 7. That was just a magical ride that I think I probably enjoyed more than even 2015, because 2015 there was expectations.
Right.
You know, there was a thought that you didn't know how long the window would last, whereas 2014, you got that monkey off your back. I mean, this was a team that it's not like they came close. They really hadn't been coming close. They had a winning season in 2013, but they hadn't even been relevant. So for him to climb that mountain, I think created a special bond with this city, and that is still felt 10 years later. I think the noteworthy part to tell our viewers is Eric Hosmer, if you remember, was a real fan favorite. I think he was Kansas City's first star since probably George Brett, and since then Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes have really taken that mantle. But after the Royals won their first playoff series in 29 years, he went to McFadden's downtown and for at least an hour bought an open bar for every Royals fan that was in attendance. Scott might also chipped in on that.
It is possible that I was there that night, I will tell you.
And so I remember the pictures. I was not there, but I remember the pictures players spraying fans with champagne. And so I think that 2014 team really understood their role in this city and how much that success meant to Kansas City. And so the reason I bring that up is because Haas is once again welcoming fans to McFadden's downtown tomorrow night, 10 o'clock, to celebrate the 10-year anniversary and the good times that all those Royals players and teams brought to this city that are still being celebrated. They will be for a long time because, listen, your first playoff win, Scott, as a fan, I think that will always be special regardless of how many titles you win down the road.
No, I think that's well put. Oh, by the way, Vinny struck out to end the 8th inning. So it's 3-2 Mariners going to the 9th in Seattle. No, it's going to be a ton of fun this weekend. Again, starting tomorrow with the event that we will have some limited access to, apparently, but we'll get to talk to at least some of the guys who are coming back. And then Friday, the pregame ceremony at the stadium. I'm sure it'll be a packed house. They get bobbleheads. It's going to be it's going to be a blast. They got the HDH bobbleheads.
They're expecting a really good crowd. So that's where, if you didn't get tickets for Thursday night's thing, which I know were really expensive, I hope Friday night at the K is very well packed. The ceremony starts at 5:30. I mean, Scott, remember, the only player still kicking it really is Salvador Perez.
Yep.
Everyone else is out of baseball right now, and they're coming back. So, of course, Alex Courtney lives here, but also, as I said, Eric Hosmer, Mike Moustakas, Lorenzo Cain, James Shields, Kelvin Herrera, who's a mayor in the Dominican Republic now. Well, he's the first of HDH, followed by Wade Davis.
And his bobblehead tomorrow night, or Friday night, by the way, in the opener. Yep.
Gerard Dyson will be here, Ned Yost will be here. I mean, Billy Butler, I think. So this is a great group of people that generally, I think, did enjoy their time in Kansas City. And so I hope they're able to, give that love back to Kansas City and vice versa.
Speaking of royal greats, you did mention maybe the greatest, George Brett. George Brett turned 71 years young today.
Doesn't look it.
How about that? Happy birthday, George.
Yeah, it's funny. Of Eric Hosmer, he actually has more postseason RBIs in fewer games than George Brett. Other than that, I think George Brett holds pretty much every record in the Royals record books as far as postseason, career. I mean, he's the only Royals Hall of Famer in Cooperstown before my time, but the fact that his legacy has really stood the test of time, that he's still one of the most iconic players in baseball for some of his fun moments, but also the competitor he was. Last Royal to hit for the cycle. Scott, you can probably speak to it better, but George Brett, a great representative of Kansas City's baseball renaissance. Their first World Series champion since Ewing Kauffman brought the team here in 1969.
I watched George Brett when I was a kid. I grew up in Southern California, and he was one of my favorite players. And I think it was partially just because the royal blue was close to the Dodger blue, so I could, I could get excited about that. But he was one of those guys who was just good TV. Not only a great player, but the charisma, the way he played the game. Everybody talks about the Pine Tar incident, but there was just so much. He played with energy. He played with passion. All the things that you just love and admire. And whether it was 1982 or 2024, you still admire those same qualities in professional athletes. And I love the fact that he's still here. He's involved. He's accessible. I mean, you and I were able to go sit in his living room last summer and do a terrific, 10-minute long interview at the time about the Little League World Series team in El Segundo, but talking about the Royals and the new stadium and, how his dream is to have a urinal from Kauffman Stadium in his house, which is probably not most people's dream, but, God bless. He is an iconic Kansas City sports figure. And happy birthday, George.
Happy birthday, 71. I think it's interesting to think about his legacy standing the test of time and how that relates to the last Chiefs and Royals, of this current iteration. What players are we going to be talking about 30 years from now? Obviously, Salvador Perez, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. I think those are the three big ones right now. But when you win in this town, this is a sports town. They support winners. They love their sports teams. And I think George is an example of how when you put in the work, when you take the field, whether it's the diamond or the football field, and you play with passion and give it your all, this town will love you long after your playing days. I think we'll see that when the 2014 Royals team comes back here. Even though that specific 14 season didn't end in a World Series, it still was a group that, played really hard. They stole a ton of bases throughout the season. They really changed how baseball kind of is thought with the back end of that bullpen. They had phenomenal frontline starting pitching in the postseason, specifically with James Shields and the late Yordano Ventura, but even additions like Jeremy Guthrie and Jason Vargas. Jeremy Guthrie is now on the Royals broadcast team.
Yep. As we speak,
a decade later, and so I think that's an example of how when you have success here, even when you're 71 years old, there's going to be people saying, "Happy birthday, George! Thank you for all you did for this town," and the legacy that you leave behind.
By the way, 4-2 Mariners in the bottom of the eighth now.
But Scott, I would have taken 1 out of 3. I think when coming out against the Angels, especially because you have now a schedule. I know the A's are playing better than some people thought, but you've got some winnable games coming up. You're coming back home. Right. Today's game specifically was a getaway lineup. The bullpen a little depleted. I think winning yesterday was a big because you couldn't get swept.
Huge. Let me ask you this. Because you talk about the A's coming in this weekend. Yes, they are better than anybody could have. I mean, the A's well above the Astros in the American League West standings. I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card. But do you think that the positivity that is inevitable with all the guys coming back in the 2014 celebration, does that spill over? Do the guys in the clubhouse right now feed off of that energy? Does it actually help them win baseball games this weekend?
I don't think so. No. It creates the excitement for me, and I think for a lot of fans. But I think, Scott, more so what creates the positivity and the excitement for what's to come is the fact that this is a group of players that is not used to winning. And they are winning at a higher rate than anyone expected and at a rate that would have them in the postseason even after a loss today on Wednesday. This is a group that's been through losing, whether it's Salvador Perez, who's lost for a handful of years, or someone, now in third year ready to win like Bobby Witt Jr., or, someone newer to the bunch. This is a team that has now experienced winning baseball, that has experienced some moments at the K that were pretty exciting. I think their motivation to keep that going sustains itself. I don't know how much seeing, guys from 10 years ago fires them up. But listen, if it does,
it'll get the fans out there.
Exactly.
More fans, more excitement, better home field advantage, right?
Exactly. I think that is legit. Yep. I think, if you can get loud with the pitcher on the mound or, just create those moments. When Salvi hit the curtain call or hit the home run that had a curtain call, whatever day that was a great moment. Scott, that moment doesn't happen if there's 12,000 fans in the stands. There's nearly 30,000. So I think getting the fans to come out to the ballpark is definitely appreciated by the players. And however you can do it, whether it's Dollar Dog Night, or celebrating heroes, whatever it is, getting fans to the K is always welcome.
All right, and before we get out of here, I do believe that we need to remind the folks what's coming up at 7 o'clock tonight, which is a special thing. Look, this is all new, right? KC Sports Tonight on this platform is new. It's week 2. But now we've got a special half-hour on the schedule release, and I know Neil Jones.
1.5 hour. We're pushing an hour.
Okay, well, as long as Jared and Neil can talk is what's going to happen tonight. But we do know it's starting at 8 o'clock, and you are not going to get a more comprehensive breakdown of this schedule than this man and Neil Jones will give you tonight. I promise you that.
Scott, I'll put you on the spot here, and also our viewers. There is I also have a web piece that you can read on KC5.com coming up. There's a reference actually to the 2014 Royals in the Chiefs schedule breakdown. All right. That is the crossover. It's not an obvious one, but in fact, the last time the San Francisco 49ers beat the Chiefs, the same day that the Royals swept the Angels in the 2014 ALDS. It was in San Francisco.
Wow,
that same Sunday. I remember listening to the radio in the Kauffman Stadium parking lot, then going in for Game 3 of the ALDS, where it rained at the end. Greg Holland struck out Mike Trout. James Shields got the start. Haas and Muth both hit home runs. One of the underrated playoff games, that Game 3 sweep. Chiefs lost the day. Nobody really remembers it because there was more pressing things at hand in 2014.
Right.
But since then, the Chiefs have beaten the 49ers in 4 different locations. Think about that.
Wow.
Miami, Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes' first ever career start at Arrowhead was against 49ers. Beat him there. Beat him in San Francisco against Jimmy Garoppolo in the regular season. And then, of course, beat him in Las Vegas the past year where you and I were. So there's even that time. That's just an example.
Wow. See, you will not get this anywhere else.
So there's your time. We'll go week by week. We'll have fun. So I hope you will join us here at 8 o'clock. Of course, we've done this similar schedule breakdown on weekends on KSTV5, which is still happening Saturday, Sunday night at 10:30, which, again, happens this weekend and every weekend. We hope you'll join us there. But guess what? The beauty about this, you don't have to wait till Saturday, Sunday for awesome Kansas City content. We'll be right back here tonight at 8 o'clock.
All right, there you go. I know you got to go get ready for that. I'm going to go get ready for the 6 o'clock news.
My suit's on. I'm ready to roll. Drop it early.
By the way, this is day, 8 of the new format here, and this is the first day where I'm not the better dressed of the 2 contestants on here. So kudos to you for that.
You complimented the hair at the start and the suit.
Hey, coming full circle. There you go. Just making you feel welcome, my friend. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you on the 6 o'clock news over on TV.